Dealing with confounding. At design stage, we deal with confounding with restriction, matching, and randomization, and at analysis stage, we deal by stratification and multivariate analysis. So the core concepts in research methodology, especially when comparing this qualitative versus quantitative approaches, there are two these words, emic and etic. These terms come from anthropology actually, but they apply to research more broadly. Emic means insider's view, whereas etic means outsider's view. Insider's view means you understand the world from the participant's perspective, and it's used in qualitative studies, whereas etic is outsider's view and you use the researcher's framework to analyze. So in emic, focus on what the subject believes or feels and experiences, and you capture cultural meaning out of it and personal understanding, and researcher immerses themselves within the context, and etic is researcher centered, so using a pre-existing external theory or standard measurement to study people. So researcher remains objective and detached, and it's common in surveys and experiments and cross-sectional studies. And we see this is inductive, means understanding of social processes derived from data. Deductive is testing formal hypothesis. Inductive reasoning occurs. It is from specific observations that eventually builds general theory. For example, we get data and we make patterns out of it, and we make a hypothesis and a theory out of it. So it's associated with qualitative research, open-ended but exploratory, used when theory is absent or evolving. For instance, if we interview 30 survivors of ICU trauma, we find recurring themes of isolation. And from deductive reasoning, that is actually top down. So from general theory, then it's tested with specific data. For example, you get theory, hypothesis, data collection, and eventually conclusion. So it's associated with quantitative research, hypothesis driven, confirmatory. It's used when theory already exists. For example, there is a theory depression leads to low sleep quality. You design a questionnaire to test this, and you collect the data, and you do statistical tests to confirm or refute this theory. So inductive is specific to general, whereas deductive is general to specific. Key idea is you build theory from data in qualitative or inductive one, and you test theory with data in deductive. So clinical trials usually use an etic plus deductive approach, whereas ethnography or grounded theory uses emic plus inductive. And now we have this qualitative data analysis. When you collect these interviews or focused group discussions or field notes, you need to make sense of large amount of this non-numerical data. This is qualitative data, and you have to analyze that. So you analyze by two methods. One is grounded theory and another is content analysis. So grounded theory is the goal of grounded theory is to generate a new theory from data. So grounded theory is there is transcripts of interviews, potential analytical categories, themes, coding text into categories, relations among categories, building theoretical models. Similarly, content analysis is theoretical framework, set of codes for variables in the theory, applying code systematically to a set of text unit of analysis by variable matrix from the text and codes, and statistical analysis of the matrix. So grounded theory is simply to generate a new theory from data. Theory is actually grounded in the actual data, and it starts from data, builds up to a theory, open-ended. There is no preset hypothesis, and there is constant comparison. Data are continuously compared across cases to find patterns, There is theoretical sampling. New data is collected based on ongoing analysis. And emergent coding. Codes are not predefined but emerge from data. So when to use grounded theory? When no existing theory explains a behavior, when you want to develop a new conceptual model, exploratory studies, for example, understanding lived experience. Now there is this content analysis. To identify and quantify themes or patterns in text-based data, can be qualitative or quantitative. So what happens in grounded theory? You just don't know the theory yet, you want to discover it. In content analysis, you already have a theory or a framework, you want to test or apply it. So consider it like a in grounded theory, you are like a detective who has no suspect. He gathers clues to build a new story. And whereas if he is a detective and he has a suspect list already, he checks evidence against it. That is in content analysis. So as per researchers mindset, I will say in grounded theory, you will say let the data tell me what's going on. But in content analysis, one will say I will test this idea using my data. That's content analysis. So grounded theory, simple step by step, is you are walking into a field with no map. You let the map path emerge. You collect interviews, you read openly, you assign codes, you make themes out of it, and eventually you come up with a theory or a model. So for instance, in rural cancer patients, faith and family explain treatment refusal more than cost or fear, because it's a qualitative study. That is why faith and family explain a treatment refusal. There is qualitative measure, and there was no pre-existing theory. That is, the theory come from the ground up. So that's why it's grounded up theory. Whereas content analysis, it's simple step by step. I'll explain. For example, you already have a framework or a map, and you are now making things on it. For instance, you have a theoretical framework already. For example, coping theory, which has got 4 variables. We know that: denial, acceptance, avoidance, and faith. So you create a code book, set of codes for each variable in your theory, and this you make this denial, then faith, then support seeking, etc. You take interview transcripts or texts, apply these codes systematically to the text. Then you create a variable and unit matrix. For example, how often each code appeared per person, and then you do statistical analysis on the matrix, and you compare it by gender, age, religion, etc. And here you are testing theory using codes from the beginning. Content analysis. Now coming to the 10% rule. In many epidemiological studies, especially case control and cohort, you start with a crude estimate of the sample size using basic this exposure, exposure disease association. But that basic formula doesn't account for real life complexities like confounders, loss to follow up, non-response. So researcher always adds a 10%, I would say 10% buffer at various stages to make the final sample more realistic and reliable. For example, if the situation comes to you that there is loss to follow up, then you will add 10% to estimate sample size. If confounders in analysis, then add 10% per confounder. And you also have to keep a general margin of error around 10% buffer for unanticipated issues during study. And remember this principles of project management and analysis plan. There is this identification of data needs, spelling out the research question, formulating the study objectives, planning analysis, day preparation of data, preparing data collection instruments, collecting data, analyzing data, drawing conclusions, formulating recommendations, and involving the program. And you can also this inform stakeholders. Reliability of data means if it is reproducible, if it is repeatability is there, if precision is there. And accuracy of a measurement is that it's correct on the average. Sequence of data analysis strategies: you identify the study type, you identify main variables, become familiar with the data, characterize study population, examine outcome, exposure, association, create additional two-way tables, and conduct advanced analysis. So Nuremberg's code is in this. It initiates discussion on rationale and justification of research, risk-benefit analysis, competence of investigators, risk-benefit analysis, competence of investigators, and voluntary consent in research. And Helsinki's declaration, its commitment to individual rights to make informed decision, investigators' duties, research participants' welfare and their vulnerability. Then comes Belmont. It described the basic ethics principles of autonomy, justice, and beneficence. Emphasized informed consent and review by ethics community. Same as guidelines, Council for International Organizations on Medical Science. Then ICH. ICH is good clinical practice. International Council on Harmonization, whereas CIOM means reporting of adverse drug reactions and safety of research participants, benefit risk balance, need and principles of pharmacovigilance. Nuremberg's code is related to risk benefit analysis, competence of the investigators, and voluntary consent in research, whereas Helsinki's declaration is related to informed decisions, investigators' duties, and research partners' welfare and vulnerability. Belmont's is related to autonomy and justice, beneficence, and emphasized informed consent and review by ethics committee, whereas ICH, International Council on Harmonization, is related to good clinical practice. So in this 7 steps of a successful protocol making, the first step is identify topic, question, and objectives, making of concept paper, preparing of dummy tables, writing of draft protocol, prepare instruments and annexes, submit to peer review, and seek ethics committee review. So what are these dummy tables? The dummy tables are actually they are empty versions of the tables you expect to produce after data analysis. They are made before the study begins, during the planning phase. Purpose of dummy tables is to clarify your research questions, define your variables, for example outcome, exposure, confounders, to ensure your data collection aligns with your objectives, and visualize the analysis before any data is collected. For example, suppose your research question is, does smoking increase the risk of hypertension? So your dummy table might contain this smoking status, smoker, non-smoker, total, and hypertension, yes or no, total percentage with hypertension, like this. But you don't fill in the values yet. It's just a framework for what kind of analysis you will do, whether it be it relative risk or odds ratio. And coming back to first step, you will see identify topic, questions, and objectives. That's where you decide what kind of study design is it, and based on the same thing you will make this dummy table. From that dummy table you will be later on calculating either relative risk or odds ratio. So benefits will be that it ensures clarity of outcome versus exposure, and helps in questionnaire or instrument design, and helps in choosing correct statistical tests. And after that comes this writing of a draft protocol. So it is your first formal written plan of the study. That's your research blueprint. It includes background, then objectives, then methods, then data collection, statistical plans, ethics, budget, and timeline. Think of this as your study proposal, like a research contract between you, your team, and the ethics committee, and maybe any funders. So draft protocol captures all parts of your study in one structured document. And so this is the so we made here this 1-page concept paper. So 1-page bullet size concept paper includes background, justifications, objective, methods, expected benefits, the key reference, and budgeting. You see, there are two things. One is this concept paper and draft protocol. So there is a bit of an overlap between concept paper versus draft protocol. So what is the overlap? What is the purpose of a concept paper? Consider this concept paper as an earlier early idea pitch, a summary to get approval or funding interest, whereas draft protocol is full detailed blueprint of how the research will be conducted. And concept paper is short, 1 to 2 pages, and it's very early idea refinement stage. It contains background, research questions, brief methods, uh, brief expected outcomes, budget idea. Audience will be funding bodies, supervisors, department heads for green lighting the idea. And it's not final, it's just exploratory or at a pitching stage. You are just pitching your idea to funders or any other bodies, whereas draft proposal is full detailed blueprint of for how the research will be conducted. It's long, around more than 10 pages, and it's at the execution or planning stage. It contains, for example, content will be in-depth method, sample size calculation, dummy tables, detailed analysis plan, full ethical section, full timeline, and this audience will be ethical committee, data collectors, statisticians, journal reviewers for full study approval and implementations, and it's yes meant to guide actual execution of the study. So think of it like this: concept paper is like a movie trailer, gives you the idea, builds trust, builds interest, and it's catchy for the those funding bodies. And draft protocol is like a script plus production plan. Every detail is nailed down for execution. So key references should not be more than 5 as per standard guidelines. For example, International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, icmje.org. Objectives should be 2 to 3, can be general, specific, can be primary, secondary, and so this is 7 steps of successful protocol. One is identify topic, question, objective, outline concept paper, dummy table, write draft protocol, prepare an instrument and annexes, submit to peer review, and seek ethical committee. You see, in the first draft of the protocol, what is this? It's not the concept paper, it is the first complete version of the full research protocol, written in detail but still open for internal revisions, feedbacks, and improvements. So here is the timeline of writing. Concept paper is also called as this consult paper. Its purpose is to pitch or to get early feedback on your research data, whereas first draft of the protocol is full study plan written out in detail. For the first time you will revise this after team supervisor input, and final protocol is after correction, formatting, editing, ready to submit to ethics committee for protocol review unit, PRU. So it does not exceed 2000 words. Introduction is less than 20% of the length and contains 5 to 10 key references. So you see, fourth step was writing of draft protocol. This draft protocol mentioned in step 4 is the same as the first draft of the protocol. What happens? You write the concept, you prepare dummy, and you write the draft protocol. This is the first complete version of the fully protocol. It includes introduction and objectives, methods, sample, data collection, ethics, analysis, plan using dummy tables. So yes, step 4 is draft protocol, is the first draft of the protocol. Thanks.